Okay, so let's take a look at number 29 and 30. Well, actually 29 through 32. So it says find the missing side links. Okay, so looking at 29, I'm gonna have one side given. I even have radicals. I see 5 radical 2, and I have to solve for the other two sides. Okay. One thing I want us to remember, we talked about uh, Pythagorean theorem yesterday. So let me do a triangle here. Let me draw 45, 45, 90 triangle. I call it 45, 45, 90 just because those are the measurements of the triangle. Interesting part is that because two angles are equal, right? The sides that are opposite from those two sides are equal as well. So let's say one side was 8. Well, the other side is 8 as well. Okay? So when two angles are equal, two sides are equal, and the interesting part is we see them there. The two angles that make the 90-degree angle. Cool. That's easy. Now, the way we're gonna solve for the other side, I remember your Pythagorean theorem? If I call this x for right now, I remember I used to go 8 squared plus 8 squared equals x squared. So get the square root on each. So my x in this case is the square root of 8 squared plus 8 squared. Okay. So what's that? I'm gonna type it on my calculator. The square root of 8 squared plus 8 squared. And it gives me a decimal. I'm like, okay, so that's not gonna help. So what if I don't deal with the square root? What if I just deal with 8 squared plus 8 squared? And it tells me that's 128. Okay, so let me come back to here. So this is the square root of 128. Okay, well, how can I simplify radicals? Well, one thing is I gotta remember my perfect squares. Remember, what's a perfect square? Square root of 4, the square root of 9, the square root of 16, the square root of 25, right? The perfect squares are square roots that give me a whole number. Now, divide, what's the biggest perfect square that can divide 128? I'm coming up here and I'm like, okay, I think I can divide it by 64, right? I can split this as the square root of 64 times the square root of 2, because 64 times 2 is 128. But isn't the square root of 64 already 8? So this is going to be 8 radical 2. One thing I want us to see things really quick here. I'm going to put in red my 3 sides. So the 2 legs were equal. Then the third side is 8 times radical 2. Interesting. They all have an 8. So if I had something like that, let's take a look at here. I know the two sides that make the 90-degree are equal. So B will be 5 radical 2, because one side is 5 radical 2, the other one's 5 radical 2. That's simple, right? They equal each other. Now for the hypotenuse is 5 radical 2 times radical 2. Isn't that 5 radical 4? Because I multiply my radicals. 2 times 2 is 4. But isn't square root of 4 a whole number? Isn't that 2? So this is the same thing as 5 times 2, which I'm going to call this 10. So one thing really quick. If we're going to the one side to the hypotenuse, we multiply by radical 2. Well, what if we were going backwards? Like in number 30. What if I was going backwards? Then in this case, we divide by radical 2. So I have 4 radical 5 divided by radical 2. Now, one thing, we cannot have radicals at the bottom. So let me multiply top and bottom by radical 2. The reason why, because I don't want radicals at the bottom. The bottom part is going to become radical 4, which becomes a whole number. Now on the top, I have 4 radical 10. Notice I multiply my radicals. 5 times 2 gave me 10. Okay, so I have 4 radical 10 over 2. Remember the bottom square root of 4 became a whole number. One thing before I continue, notice out here, I multiply top and bottom by radical 2. Where did that radical 2 come from? The bottom. So whatever it is that we have at the bottom, that's it. Okay, now here, I'm almost there. So I look at my fraction here, my whole numbers. 4 divided by 2. Isn't that, can that be simplified? 4 divided by 2. So my answer here will be 2 radical 10. All right, if this side is 2 radical 10, I'm going to say this other side is also 2 radical 10. From 45, 45, 90-degree angles, or 45, 45, 90 triangles, the two sides that make the 90-degree angle are equal. So if you know the side, if you know the measurement one side, the other one is the same thing. So 2 radical 10. Now, how am I going to type this in? So if this was my answer, 2 rad 10. I'm even going to mention it right here. 3 radical 5 is written as 3 rad 5. So 2 radical 10, 2 rad 10. Make sure the 10 is inside the parentheses. Same thing up here. 5 radical 2, I would type that as 5 rad 2. 5 radical 2. Okay, so 45, 45, 90, that's how we do those. Now, let's take a look. Let me start with the triangle here. I'm gonna play here a little. What if I started with an equilateral triangle? So all the angles are 60. And then I decided to cut this in half right here, such that I make a 90-degree angle. So my 60 on the top, I cut it into 30 and 30. And that's gonna give me what we're going to call a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, that's where we headed. So, but on the sides, on my triangle at the beginning, let's say one of the sides is 8. Well, because all the angles are equal, all the sides are equal, right? But remember how I said I was going to cut this into half here. So wouldn't that make this side 4 in the hypotenuse, and then 30 here, and then this side is 8. One thing I want you guys to see, the small side, and I call small because it's opposite from the small angle, the small side is half of the hypotenuse. That's something we're going to see. On our 30, 60, 90 triangles, the small side is half of the hypotenuse. So if I give you the hypotenuse, cut it in half, and that's how you get the small side. If I give you the small side, multiply by 2 to get the hypotenuse. Now the hard part will be this third side. Let me erase things here. Let me call this x. According to our Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus 4 squared is equal to 8 squared. That means x squared is equal to 8 squared minus 4 squared. Because I moved the 4 squared to the other side, so minus. So that means that x squared is equal to 64 minus 16. Oh, what's 64 minus 16? Well, according to my calculator, that's 48. X squared is equal to 48. So that means x is the square root of 48. But that's not a perfect square. Okay. So I'm going to split this again. How do I simplify radicals? Remember my perfect squares. You guys see them right now on the left of your screen. 48, I can divide this by 16. Because remember, I'm looking at I could have divided by 4. Not by 9. I could divide it by 16, not by 25, not by 36. I'm going to divide it by the biggest one that I can. So 16. What's 48 divided by 16? 3. But isn't the square root of 16 equal to 4? So my x is equal to 4 radical 3. So this is 4 radical 3. Now, I've seen that 4 before. Okay, so really quick, as a reminder, the small side is half of the hypotenuse, right? From the small side to this medium side, multiplied by radical 3. So that gives us a 4 radical 3. So from the small side to the medium side, multiply by radical 3. If I was going backwards, then I will divide. Let's take a look at number 31 and 32. I'm going to call this 30, 60, 90 because my angles are going to be 30, 60, 90. I gave you 2, so you can figure the third one. The small side here is y, right? Is the numbered opposite from the 30 degrees. That's the small side. And to be honest, that's the one side that I want. I want to start with that one. What number do I have? I have the 20. I have the hypotenuse. Remember how I said from the hypotenuse to the small side, cut it in half? The half of 20 is 10. Okay, good. I have that already. I got that from the hypotenuse. Okay, from the small side to the medium side, don't I have to go 10 times radical 3? A whole number and a radical cannot be combined. So that's it. My answer is 10 radical 3. The value of y is 10. The value of x is 10 radical 3. The way I will type this on my homework will be 10 radical 3. I will ask you to solve for both values. Okay, let's take a look at number 32. My 30 degrees is here, and I want to have the small side. Okay, if I had the hypotenuse here is x. If I had the hypotenuse divided by 2 and you get the small side. But no, you have the medium side. Okay, so let's remember. Okay, if I had the small side to get the medium side, I multiply by radical 3. Because I'm going backwards, let me divide by radical 3. So I have 5 radical 3 divided by radical 3. Oh, my radicals cancel out. So this is 5. So how big is the hypotenuse? If the small side is 5, how big is the hypotenuse? Well, 10. Remember, the small side is half of the hypotenuse, so 10. So real quick, starting from the small side to go to the medium, you multiplied by radical 3. Starting from the small side to go to the hypotenuse, you multiply by 2. If you're going backwards, then you divide. Like if you're going from the medium to the small, divide by radical 3. If you're going from the hypotenuse to the small, divide by 2.